friends, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Stacy and I am the Chapter Conundrum. And in today's video, I want to talk about some books and specifically series that have a lot of character backstories. So books and series where you get to really discover more and more tidbits about a protagonist or many protagonists' backstories and really get to delve into their motivations and their personalities and kind of why they are the way they are, what experiences have shaped them into the character they are in the present timeline of the book, and all that good stuff. So this is an aspect of fantasy series in particular that I really enjoy, and so I just wanted to share some books that worked for me in this regard. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book or series I'm going to talk about today is the Broken Empire series by Mark Lawrence. The first book being Prince of Thorns. And this series follows our main character, Jorg, and he is not a good dude at all. Like, people compare him to Joffrey from A Song of Ice and Fire occasionally. I wouldn't put him, like, necessarily in the same category as Joffrey, but sort of in that vein, if you're just, like, trying to get a broad picture of this character and what he's like. But anyway, this series is told in two timelines, and the timelines are set about 4 or 5 years apart, if I can remember correctly. And a lot of the intrigue of the series for me is kind of how we got from point A to point B in this story. But furthermore, you get additional glances into Jorg's past with certain events, and you really get to slowly unpack why he is the way he is, why he has the quirks that he does, and sort of why he's making the decisions that he's making. You definitely get some of his more formative experiences as a child, and all of that was very fascinating for me. I do know that this is going to be a series that's not for everyone because of how unlikable Jorg is, but for this specific aspect, if this is something you love in a series, definitely would recommend trying this one out. There are scenes in this series that will permanently be seared into my brain because they were that memorable for me. And there's kind of one particular scene that I have in mind, and it happens in book 2. I'm not going to tell you anything about what the scene is. I'll let you discover it for yourself. But if you're someone who has read the series and you're wondering what I'm talking about, all I'm going to say is justice, and that should ring a bell and let you know what I'm talking about. I also just want to mention that book 2 in this series, King of Thorns, is particularly excellent for this kind of slow unpacking of a character's backstory, because it makes heavy use of the amnesia trope. So at the start of book 2, Jorg kind of has some amnesia, and he's just slowly unpacking and remembering more and more about who he is in his life. And he gets these kind of memories little by little throughout the book. So definitely this is a fantastic series for this type of experience. Next up, I want to recommend the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy, starting with Guild. And this is a dark fantasy and fantasy romance series, but you follow our main character, Oren. And throughout the course of the books and the series, you definitely really get to unpack a lot of her experiences and why she is the way she is as well. So if you don't know anything about this series, this is a loose King Midas retelling, and you start off with Oren kind of being King Midas's like slave in a way. She's kept in a cage, but the twist you find out right at the beginning is that, hey, wait a minute, she actually wants to be in this cage and feels safe there. So definitely there's a lot to unpack there right away, and that takes some time over the course of the books. So another part of the joy of just watching Oren's character experience is her character growth. Definitely one of the very early events in this book has Oren outside of her cage for the first time in a long time. And through what she experiences over the course of the series, you definitely get to see her form new thought patterns, have realizations, and just kind of blossom into a different person. This series definitely has a character arc that I enjoyed, and I am eager to wrap it up and finish out the last book to find out where things end. So another series that definitely belongs on this list of recommendations is The Gentleman Bastards, starting with the lives of Locke Lamora. And in this, you follow Locke Lamora, and you get him in two timelines. One is the past timeline of a lot of his formative experiences growing up and sort of how he got to where he is now. And the other timeline is more present day, and he is involved with this sort of brotherhood, and they are planning a very elaborate heist. With having so much of this book in the past timeline, this is a really great example of a situation where you really get to learn about a character's experiences and kind of go along the journey with them. And actually, some of the past timeline stuff in this book is my favorite stuff in here. It's really interesting to see Locke and Jean's friendship kind of grow and develop. It's interesting to see all of their joint experiences and just Locke's experiences as well. But the past timeline in here is also about more than just Locke's character experience and the group dynamic. There's also some, seeds of plot and political aspects of the story that are laying in the past timeline as well that play interesting parts into the plot. Definitely, if you enjoy nuanced character backstories, this is a series you don't want to miss out on. So my next series recommendation is a fun one, and fun in that you actually get to have this experience with two characters in the series, and it is going to be Gavin and Karis from the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, starting with The Black Prism. And there is a lot going on in this series for sure, but you have many perspectives, and you kind of start out with Kip. And he is a young boy whose town is attacked, and he ends up escaping and fleeing to the Chromeria, which is a magical school in this world. And sort of the other POVs all kind of tie into what's happening at the Chromeria. So you have Gavin, who is the Prism, which is kind of like the leader of this world in a sense. And you have Karis, who is sort of in a bodyguard position or role. And you also have other POVs as well. But basically, Gavin and Karis are the two characters that throughout the series I found I really enjoyed digging out more and more pieces of their backstory and piecing them together. It was interesting that not only did they have their own unique backstory elements, but their backstory elements actually tied in with each other's backstories a little bit too. They definitely both have a lot that you slowly get to unpack over the course of the series. And similarly with Locke Lamora, the things that you unpack actually tie into the plot as well. They're not just character revelations. So they keep you on the edge of your seat for sure. And this series is definitely an enjoyable ride for those of us who love digging into character backstories. Another book that firmly belongs in this list, even though it is YA, I guess upper YA, is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And essentially this is a character-focused heist story, and it's multi-perspective. So you get the perspective of several people involved in this heist. But again, it's told in two timelines. So you have like the present day heist situation going on, but then you also get like past chapters from all of these POV characters. And it's definitely a unique and interesting experience to learn about each of these characters individually. And I also appreciated that they were very different from each other. A lot of them come from different backgrounds and different scenarios. And so not only was it interesting in terms of each of their characters, but it was interesting in terms of fleshing out the fantasy world in this series too. I think even if you don't typically read YA, if nuanced character backstories is something you enjoy, this is one you should definitely check out because it definitely sort of bridges the gap between young adult and adult. It is part of a larger universe, the first series in the world being Shadow and Bone, but this has a very different flavor and just elevated writing style compared to that trilogy. Having read them both, I will say you don't need to have read Shadow and Bone in order to enjoy Six of Crows. Six of Crows takes place, on a different timeline in a different part of the world. The only thing you're really missing is just context about the magic system. But it's not overly well explained in the Shadow and Bone trilogy anyway. It's pretty soft magic. So really that's not the highlight of this book or series anyways. Definitely this one is exciting for its character work. And then I have one more series to talk about today. This one I think more of an honorable mention, specifically because I don't remember having a lot of details to dig out about these backstories, but I'm talking about the First Law universe. And to be fair, I've only yet read the first trilogy in that, but Logan and Glockta's characters both come to mind in terms of characters where you get to dig out tidbits of their backstories that are interesting. Both of these characters are very jaded and they've been through some crap, and you know right away from the present timeline that they are those types of characters. So I think it's just fascinating to find out what happened to them. And similarly, to some of these other series. They are from, you know, different parts of the world, so delving into their backstories also kind of fleshes out the world a little bit more. The reason this doesn't make my top 5 recs is just because, again, I don't remember how much specific detail you get to find out and unpack from each of their backstories, but I do remember enjoying finding out certain aspects of their backstories. So this definitely belongs as an honorable mention here. So those were all the books and series I had to talk about today for nuanced character backstories. Let me know down below in the comments what books or series I've missed here, which ones have nuanced, interesting backstories for you. I do suspect that when I read it, The Greatcoats or Trader's Blade Book 1 could potentially be on a list like this, but again, I haven't really read it, so I don't know yet. I do know that that one is told in 2 timelines, and that you have kind of a brotherhood or a group of characters called the Greatcoats that were the King's Guard, and that the king, I think, has passed away, but before he did, he gave each of his Greatcoats a mission. But a few of them are still together in the present timeline and have a fun friendship dynamic. So I feel like, given that premise, we're going to get a lot of stuff happening in the past timeline, and obviously eventually find out what each of their missions are. So I do feel like that one has the potential to belong on a list like this at some point when I read it. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments what other books or series fall into this sort of nuanced character backstory realm for you, because I would love to check more of them out. This is something I always enjoy reading in fantasy, specifically when I read it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out if you want to, and have a fantastic day. Bye.